Here we go. This is the um, section 12.1 in our circles unit. All right. So let's see what we got here. I haven't looked at the shit. We're going in blind. Um, Derivation of the equation of a circle. So what we're going to do is we're going to come up with the equation of a circle. Like we know the equation of a parabola is y equals x squared. We know the equation of a line is y equals mx plus b. So this is how we come up with the equation of a circle. So if we just have a circle on a graph, right, the first thing you might notice is the center. All right, so we are going to let the center of the circle, we're just going to call it h and k. All right, so like h is that x value, k is the y value. Let the radius of the circle be r. All right, so that's nothing new. And then let a point on the circle. So this point right here, just on the edge of the circle, we're just going to call that xy. All right, so we're just filling in everything we know. All right, so we have the center, we have a point, and we have a radius. And these 5 letters, or these 3 things, are going to help us make the equation of a circle. What they want us to do is they want to draw a right triangle here. All right, and they want that right triangle to connect the center to that point x, y. All right, so the hypotenuse of this right triangle, of course, is going to be r, is going to be that radius. They want to know what are the lengths of the sides of the triangle. All right, so basically, what we need to do is we need to figure out what is the value of that ordered pair. And if you want to think about the value of that ordered pair, we can think of it kind of in terms of x and y. So if we think of this as our starting point, like our 0, 0, how many units over are we going? All right, so we're actually going x units to the right, but then how far up are we going? What is the y coordinate here? And that should be the same as this one, all right, as k. It's still k units above the y, or above the x axis. So that is actually that point there. So if we wanted to figure out the length of the legs of these triangles, the distance from h to x, all right, this one right here. Let's see, I'm gonna redraw this triangle. Right, so we have h and k. We have x and y up here. This ordered pair right here is x minus h, all right? That's the first one, x minus h. That is this distance right here. You have to take that x value minus the h value, and that tells us that specific length. So here, I'm just going to take that x minus h, and I'm going to put it underneath like this, x minus h, and then the y, or the other leg, kind of the up and down distance, that is going to be your y value minus your k value. All right, so we've kind of done this before when we first derived the Pythagorean theorem, or the distance formula. We've done this. So if we want to think about these two things together, this ordered pair here is, let's see here, it's x minus h, and then y minus k. All right, that's the value of that ordered pair there, that like bottom point on our right triangle here. All right, so what are the lengths of the legs? We have x minus h, y minus k, and then of course the length of the hypotenuse is still r. All right, so now plug these into the, I said it earlier, plug this into the Pythagorean theorem. We've used this thing about 100,000 times in this class, so hopefully you guys remember it. We know it's a squared plus b squared equals c squared. All right, that is your Pythagorean theorem. And of course, the c value is always the hypotenuse. So if we plug in everything from up top here, we know a is a leg, b is a leg. So I'm just going to say x minus h, right? But we do have to square that, x minus h squared plus, and then the next one, the other leg is kind of that up and down leg. That's our y minus k squared. This equals the radius squared. All right. And that thing right there, that is the equation of a circle. All right. So remember, the kind of the definition of a circle is all the points that are a set distance away from a center point. All right. So what we can do is we can use this formula to figure out every single point that is r units away from the center of the circle. And how do we figure out a distance? Well, we use the distance formula here. All right. And the distance formula, of course, comes from the Pythagorean theorem. So it turns out the equation of a circle is just the distance formula. All right. So on the next page, let's just kind of define what all of those things mean. So I'm just going to rewrite that. We had, I'm just going to do it all in one color, x minus h squared plus y minus k squared equals r squared. All right, the center of our circle is x, it's not x, it's h k. All right, so the center is hk. Remember, h and k, these are just numbers. Man, guys, sorry, I'm just not with it right now. H comma k, there we go. H is some number, k is some number. All right, and then the point on the circle, this is your x and y value. Right, here's your x and y. All right, and then of course the radius is just r, that is this length right here. Right. One thing to keep in mind with this formula is our h and k values. See how it's a minus h and a minus k, and then when we look at the center, it's a positive h and a positive k. That's just something we really have to pay attention to. So whatever that number is, it's kind of like line on the inside. So if it's x minus 2, then we know the center is going to be positive 2 units. So that's just something we have to really pay attention to, and then you'll see that on a couple of these examples here. So again, here's just the formula we have as actual equations. You'll notice x and y stay x and y because it is an equation. We need x's and y's in an equation. It's the h, the k, and the r. All right, those are the ones that are actually going to have numbers associated with them. So if we look here, we have x plus 7 and y minus 13. All right, so the center, all right, so since it's a positive 7, we know the center is negative 7 units and then positive 13 units. So we have to pretty much take the opposite sign of what they are giving us. All right, so the center of the circle is 7 units to the left and then 13 units up. All right, the radius on this one is not 4. The radius equals 2. All right, now why is it 2? Because if we look at this equation, the number you plug in are squared. So the radius on this equation, if we really wanted to think about it, they're giving us the squared version. We know r squared is equal to 4. So since r squared is 4, all we have to do is just square root it. Right? So we know r equals 2. All right, so all we're doing is square rooting that number to get our radius. All right, on this next one, same idea. They just wrote it backwards. All right, they're using the symmetric property here. I'm just going to do the center first. All right, so remember, that center, those numbers are lying to us. So let's just identify them. All right, center is a positive 3 and a negative 7. All right, and then the radius, again, that's the radius squared, that 45 is r squared. R squared is 45. Right? How do you kill a square? Square root it. So the radius is the square root of 45. Let's go ahead and reduce that down. That's going to give us, let's see here, this is equal to the square root of 9 and the square root of 5, right? So we're reducing that radical, we're simplifying that radical. The real radius is 3 times the square root of 5. Here we have it. So now we're actually just going to graph these things. Let's see here. The center. Notice on this problem, it's just y squared. If you want to, you can rewrite this to make it look more like the formula that we have. You could call this x plus 3 squared, and then this y. You can call this y plus 0 if you want to. Equals 16, right? So with that in mind, your center, I'm just going to abbreviate, the center is going to be negative 3, 0. Right? And your radius, remember, radius squared equals 16. Therefore, the actual radius on this circle is 4. All right, so identify that center. All right, be careful on this one. Negative 3, 0. We are going 3 units to the left and 0 units up. And then we want a radius of 4. All right, so if you're not good at drawing circles, that's okay. What I would do is just count the units. All right, so count 4 units to the left and 4 units to the right, 4 units down and 4 units up. All right, so those are all 4 units away, and then just make a circle out of it. All right, if you have a compass, great. So I can cheat. I can make circles on this thing. All right, so start at your center and then just move it out. Right, that is a circle of radius 4. Right. So there we have it. Let's do it again. All right, so the center on this guy, I'll keep my colors the same. All right, so those inside numbers are liars, so that's going to be a positive 2 on the x value and then a negative 2 on the y value. And then your radius squared equals 28. So in this one, let's just go ahead and square root it. Since we are graphing this, we're going to need a decimal. All right, so what is the actual square root of 28? I don't know. So we'll call it 5.3. All right, so the radius is equal to 5.3. All right, so same as last time, get that center. So 2 to the right, 2 down. All right, and then go 5 and a little bit more. All right, since we're graphing, we do have to eyeball it a little bit. So I'm just going to go 5 to the left, right, up and down here, 5 and a little bit more. All right, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and a little bit more. So maybe like right there. And then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and a little bit more. So probably close to that point. All right, then go up, then go down. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, up. 2, 3, 4, 5, and a little bit more down. So there we have it. Those are kind of 4 points. And then if you want to draw your circle from those points, by all means, if you have a compass or if you have a smart notebook and you can draw your circles perfectly, then do that. All right, so there is your circle. All right. And there we have it. That's really all we need to say about these. Maybe here, draw in, maybe identify that this is 4. Identify that this one is 5.3. Right. Identify your centers if we might as well. All right, so this point is at negative 3, 0. And this point is at 2, negative 2. Right. And that's just how we look at the equations and we graph them. So again, one thing to keep in mind is this +3, that's a liar, right? It should be the opposite one. So that's why we have the -3 there. All right, so now I got one more page. So what they're going to do is they're going to ask us, hey, write the equations this time. All right, so let's not overcomplicate this. Let's just write out the whole thing. X minus h squared plus y minus k squared equals r squared. All right, let's plug everything in here. All right, the center, -14, 10. All right, so we have x minus -14. Then that whole thing is squared. Plus y minus, and then we have 10 squared. And then, of course, the radius, we're going to say this is equal to 1 squared. Okay. So that's pretty good. All right. We could probably leave it just like that. However, that's not do. So some room here. The only thing that I would do differently here, or just for completion's sake, this is minus -14. All right, so my final answer here, I'm going to say x plus 14 squared plus y minus 10 squared equals, well, 1 squared is just 1. Right? So that would be your final answer. And now it kind of matches, right? So we said that that plus 14 is a liar, so the center should be a -14. So it's just it's consistent, and that's kind of what we go with here. All right. Same thing on the next one. Yep. X minus h squared plus y minus k squared equals r squared. All right, so just plug in everything we have. X minus 6 squared plus y minus 1 squared equals the square root of 17 squared. Right, so your last step on this one, just get rid of the square root. All right, so x minus 6 squared plus y minus 1 squared equals 17. All right, square root of 17 squared is just 17, so that's where that one comes from. All right, so we have a few more, and this next one's a little bit more involved here. All right, so they give us the center and they give us a point on the circle. Unfortunately, they don't give us the radius. All right, so what we need to do is we need to kind of go back to this formula, just how we derived it. The center of the circle is h and k, but the point on the circle is x and y. And on this example, they're giving us the center and they're giving us the point. All right, so again, first things first, write out the equation. You guys are, pretty bad about not writing out the equation. So I would really recommend you do this part. All right, so y minus k squared equals r squared. All right, just go ahead and write out the whole thing. I know it's an extra line of writing, but get over it. It's going to, help in the long run. All right, we know the center. All right, this is hk. All right, we know the point on the circle. This is xy. Right, so plug in everything we know. All right, we do not know the radius. That's what we're trying to figure out. All right, so here's what I'm doing. I'm just going to copy and paste this down. And then we're just going to plug in everything. All right, so instead of saying h, we know what h is. Right? instead of saying k, we know what k is. So plug in the appropriate numbers. So this is minus -4, right? And this one gives us minus -2. Right? We know what the y values are, right? So get rid of x and y and plug in the appropriate numbers, right? So the x value is -11, right? The y value is 7. From there, we can figure out what the radius is. Do it by hand, plug it into your calculator, whatever you want to do. Right? If we do it by hand, let's just think -11 minus -4. Right? So it's really a +4. -11 plus 4 gives us -7. So it's -7 squared plus, right, on the next one, 7 minus -2. That's going to be 7 plus 2 gives us 9. So it's 9 squared equals the radius squared, right? You cannot square root both sides here. If you do that, you will get the wrong answer. So don't you dare even think about it, all right? Square it out first. 7 squared, -7 squared. It's 49. If you just get rid of all 3 square roots, you're going to get the wrong answer every single time. It's going to be r squared. All right, so 49 plus 81 is the radius squared. 80 plus 50 gives us 130. So r squared equals 130, right? And that's what we want. We can plug this now into our equation, right? So the radius is the square root of 130. I don't know what that is. But r squared is 130. So now we have everything we need in this equation. We know we have x minus h. Instead of saying h, I'm going to say minus -4 squared plus, and then we have y minus k, and k is -2, equals 130. Right, because that is our r squared value. And then the last thing, just clean it up a little bit. So we have x plus 4. X plus 4 squared plus y plus 2 squared equals 130. Right? And there we have it. That is how we write the equation of a circle when we have the center and a point on the circle here. All right. So on the next one, I'm just going to take this equation. Take this equation. I'm just going to put it over here. Right? And then I'm going to fill in everything that I know. All right. So let's see if we can do this all in one go. So x, the point on the circle, is our x. So this is 6. H is that first value in the center. So 6 minus 9 squared plus the y value is 3. And then the k value is -2. Right. Square that. This equals the radius squared. Right. So again, just going through, evaluating everything. This is -3 squared plus, let's see here, that ends up being 5 squared equals r squared. Let's see here, that's a +9. Remember, anytime you square a number, it turns positive. Right? So you have 9 plus 25 equals r squared. 9 plus 25 is 34 equals r squared. So if you wanted to, you could say r, the radius here, is equal to the square root of 34. All right, so that's like 5 point something. I don't know what that number is, but you know, if we wanted to plug that one in, great, we could do it. So writing out the equation, x stays x, y stays y. It's the h, the k, and the r that have to be the actual numbers. Right? So we have x minus 9 squared plus y minus -2 squared equals square root of 34 squared. And then again, cleaning that up, x minus 9 squared plus y plus 2 squared equals 34. Right? And it should, right? The r squared was 34. That's what we got here. Right? So that is the equation of the circle centered at the point 9, -2, and has a radius of 34. Right? Next one here, identify the circle as center, that is 4, 0. No, it's not, it's 0, 4. 0 units to the left and right, 4 units up. The radius on this guy is 3. So writing it all out, we have x minus 0 squared plus y minus 4 squared equals 3 squared. And if we wanted to simplify that, just keep it as x squared plus y minus 4 squared equals 9. And one more here. So you have a center at, it's -4, 0. And it looks like we have a radius of 1. Keep in mind these units, right, each kind of faint spot is 0.5, I guess. All right, so if we were to do this all in one go here, we're going to have x squared. No, we're not. We're going to have x plus 4 squared plus y squared equals 1. All right. And there we have it. I told you guys it was 1 and I wrote down a 2. Sorry about that. All right. So the radius is 1, so that means 1 squared is 1. So x plus 4 and then plus y squared equals 1. Right? Because there is, you can put a plus 0 here, y plus 0 squared, but it doesn't really change anything. All right. The circumference of this circle is 4 pi. The center is 3/4. We know the circumference. C equals 2 pi r. All right. So let's plug it in. The circumference is 4 pi, so we can say 4 pi equals 2 pi r. So divide both sides by 2 pi. You know, divided 2 pi here, divided 2 pi here. Right? Pi's cancel out. You're just left with 4 divided by 2, which gives you 2. Right? So the radius is 2. So now here's your radius. Here's your center. Make the equation out of that x minus 3 squared plus y minus 4 squared equals 2 squared. Right? So last step, just square out that 2. X minus 3 squared plus y minus 4 squared equals 4. And then the last one here, the area of a circle is equal to pi r squared. They're telling us the area is 16 pi. So we know 16 pi equals pi r squared. So divide away the pi. We have r squared equals 16. So your radius here is equal to 4. All right. So again, we have the center. We have our radius. Combine those two things. Let's see, I have 2 minutes before the bell. Can we finish? X minus -2 squared plus y minus -4 squared equals 4 squared. Therefore, simplifying everything, x plus 2 squared plus y plus 4 squared equals 16. And that is our final answer here. All right. So there we have it. So again, just to recap, in your final answer for these equations, you need to have an x and you need to have a y. The only time that you actually put numbers in are for the h, the k, and the r. Right. Sometimes I give you the center and the radius. You can just jump straight to the equation. Sometimes I give you a center and a point on the circle. You just have to do the distance formula to figure that one out, or just plug it straight in and then solve for the radius. If I give you the circumference, plug it into the circumference formula, figure out the radius, similarly with the area. All right, so there we have it, and see you guys in the next video.